Every single A&R said no to this track. Hey, this is Rune, and this is the making of Calabria. I am born in Copenhagen in Christiania, which is a free town. It's a great place. It was very hippie-spirited when I was a kid. My parents are hippies. My dad was a guitarist. He sadly passed away. My mom is an artist. Great upbringing. My dad was very much into trying to teach me how to play guitar, but realistically I found out I was terrible at it. Then for the longest time, my brother tried to teach me to play the drums, and then I realized I was terrible at that too. As soon as I discovered that, I realized I'm just going to dedicate all my time to trying to make music with the computer instead. The first computer I got was an Amiga 500, and a friend of mine introduced me to a tracker software called Pro Tracker or Fast Tracker. I can't remember which one it was. I produced 3 or 4 records on that setup. I actually started off making more hip-hop inspired stuff because that's kind of what I knew. And then after hearing early house and techno, I guess, I just dedicated all my time to that. I just was infatuated by this feeling I got from this music. The first records I really got into were one by DJ Pierre called What is House Music? One of my absolute favorites. There's South Street Players, Who Keeps Changing Your Mind. It was very housey. God Made Me Funky, MD Express. So many of those early records that were so soulful and so funky, made on a computer. I just didn't understand how that was even possible. Later, I'd bridge into more techno stuff, got into a lot of Detroit, minimal techno as well. I mean, as things go, at the time, it was so exciting, so much to listen to. The first alias I had was Artificial Funk, which was the first release I had, I think, in '95. Then Rune, RKO Rune, was my DJ name at the time, so I was performing as that. I guess that alias was actually formed for the release of Calabria somehow, I guess. At the time, I had just bought a fresh computer from Aldi because I couldn't afford anything else. I was still using tracker software. It had evolved a little bit. I had more channels because it was a PC at the time. I had just rented a little studio space outside of where I lived because my neighbors were complaining a lot. And I was sitting one night, I just started producing stuff. And at the time, you could buy these music magazines, but you would get sample CDs with the actual magazines. So I had a bunch of those, and I was playing around with different sounds. And one of those sample CDs had an octave of saxophone notes. So it was basically just mep, 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 and so forth. But the cool thing about it was they had also sampled the overtones of the notes. There's a particular overtone you could do with the saxophones, and they had that there. So I was just fiddling around with the sounds of different notes, and I fairly quickly just bodged together this sax loop, which became Calabria. I'd just been in Ibiza that summer for the first time ever, so I was well into the whole Balearic spirit and all these things. So what I wanted to do was to make a Balearic version of Jeff Mills' The Bells, which was my favorite techno record. So I was trying to make something that could endure the loop that you wouldn't get tired of listening to, which The Bells is a perfect example of. Fairly quickly, within, let's say, an hour and a half, I've finished off the rest of the track with the drums, and there's different loops, and there's some vocal chops in there that I did myself. My then manager had his office around the corner, so I was finished, let's say, 6 or 7 in the morning, and I had a quick coffee and was like, all right, I'm going to go play it to my manager. I'm super excited about this. Went over there, played it to him, got sort of a lukewarm reception. And the guy who was running the company that he was working for at the time just said, this is absolute trash. It's never going to be anything. It's just annoying to listen to. I produced this track 2001, and it didn't get signed until 2003. I really loved the track, but it seemed nobody really responded to it very well. Every single A&R said no to this track. And weirdly enough, the reactions on the floor were huge. People were really into it, and it became sort of this underground cult hit in my sets. People would play it, and people just lost it to this record. I knew there was something there, but nobody really wanted to touch it because I think it sounded so different. Nothing sounded like this at the time. In the end, we went to Creedence at the time, run by Mark Brown, who's still in the business, a super guy. And he heard something in it. We decided to sign it to him and to the label. He actually insisted that we put the Calabria loop, the Saxapella loop on the release, because he figured it would be a great tool for DJs to put over other records. And I think if he hadn't insisted on that, this would be a completely different story. Within a couple of months, everybody was playing it. I was going to Ibiza every summer anyway, so I'd go and I'd hear all these DJs playing my records, and it was just such a great feeling and a great moment to be stood on Pacha on the floor, hearing Roger Sanchez play a record or whatever. It was just, I'll never forget those moments because that meant so much to me. I was approached to do several vocal versions. At the time, the formula was this, basically. You had a semi-big club record hit, you slap a vocal on it, it becomes a bigger hit. Add the sexy dance video, which was very important in the early 2000s, pretty much mostly just girls in bikinis or whatever. But for the longest time, I just declined every single approach because I didn't feel that it was the right thing to do. This stretched into, let's say, 2006. I remember that I had a dream one night that I wanted to do a version with this girl called Natasha. Woke up in the morning and said, I'm doing this. So Natasha was an old friend, an old acquaintance of mine. She was an amazing reggae artist at the time. She was doing these patois things that nobody else was doing. I rang her up and said, would you like to do this? And she said, yeah, that sounds great. Sounds fun. And then it took like a good 6 months before she had anything ready to go. But we recorded it. I knew immediately that it was going to be a big record. And then we signed it to Ministry of Sound back then, who proceeded to release the Alex Gaudino version instead, which got me so angry. And I was really upset. And I may or may have not have said stupid things at the time. I'm sorry, I was young, I was just passionate. Destination unknown, I didn't know much about the record industry at the time. It wasn't any of my expertise. I've since learned a lot. I have no animosities against Alex Gaudino at all. He's a super guy. We've met a few times and he did a great job with that record, no question. So they had licensed Alex Gaudino's version and that became a huge hit in certain territories in Europe. Patrick Moxey, who at the time ran Ultra, took on our version instead. And he had slipped that record to one of the biggest radio DJs in New York at the time. And that's how that record became huge in America. It ended up selling 1 million copies. Natasha tragically passed away before the record became big, which was devastating to us all. We were preparing a tour, my brother and I, and her, to go to America and play this record over there. And it all just became a bit of a mess. And then in hindsight, I think her passing stigmatized the record for me because actually since those days, I've not played it. I just feel that it sort of belongs to a different time and it's somehow not my place to play it anymore, which is, I guess when you lose a friend, those feelings come about. With the success of Calabria, with the enormous attention, I found myself producing more and more commercial records. I would produce for a lot of different people, partially ghost producing, but also just producing records that were made for radio, for EDM festivals and this kind of thing. And it was never my intention. My intention was just to make exactly the music that I wanted to make and scrape by. That was kind of the most I'd ever hoped for. I didn't feel any freedom in the music I was making. I was missing experimenting, doing exactly what I felt like. And what happened was that Michael Meyer from Compact wrote me an email. He'd heard some of the earlier stuff I'd done and asked if I wanted to make a record for Compact. And then I made Lorelei, and the rest is history. I mean, most people have no clue that I made Calabria, which is quite funny. It's hard to embrace, but I'm still very proud of having at least made a mark in time somehow.